Omar Khan joining us right now. Nice to see you, Omar. Thanks very much.
Good to see you guys.
Appreciate
How
it.
are you? Good to see you.
I feel like it should be a two-part question. Like, hey, nice to see you. How you doing? And who's going to be the quarterback? Right? Is that pretty much what you're getting right now?
I've had that question asked a few times.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you guys, we're working through it right now, but like where we're at.
Yeah. The first question, really, for me, is, you've got a new coach, right?
Yeah.
And how is that process working to get ready for not only the combine and getting him on board with the guys you're scouting, but also his own self-scouting of the team and how that all, maybe tweaks or changes the roster a little bit one way or the other.
Yeah, you know what? This morning I'm sitting there thinking it's only been a month. It feels like it's been so much longer with Mike McCarthy because we've been grinding. I mean, it's been nonstop since he came on board. Obviously, getting ready for the combine, free agency, getting a staff together. Him getting to know us getting to know him. It's been nonstop.
So is his priority just in terms of, getting acclimated? Was it get to know the team that he's inheriting, or start to look at free agents to be, or I wonder. It's so new around here to have a new coaching staff. How do they jump into the what's the order of operations in terms of roster building from them?
Yeah, I'll tell you. Part of the interview process, is you talk about the roster, and he was well prepared. He knows the roster really well, so that part of it was pretty much done. And obviously, we had insight that he didn't. And when he got this job, we just kind of compared notes. We've had some really great, solid conversations. We share the same vision, and we're trying to win a Super Bowl, and how do we get there? That's what we're working through, and then. Getting ready for the draft, and as I mentioned, the staff. There's just been nonstop.
I would think that it's really helpful to have a carryover assistant on each side of the ball, because they could say, if they're watching tape of the Ravens game, well, this is what our thoughts were with how we utilized our personnel in that game. Bringing back McCarthy and Arth, I would think is a nice bridge from last year's tape to this year's stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. It was great to have those guys back around. Hopefully those guys can ask us some questions too, and we can give them some insight when they're ready for it. This is it's been good.
When you look at a new coaching staff, and it's been a while, obviously, since we've seen one. Sometimes a guy will come in and say, "Well, I don't want to run a 3-4. I want to run a 4-3." And now all of a sudden, you've got a bunch of round pegs, and you're trying to jam into a square hole. Mike talked about at his press conference, one of the things that really caught my attention, and then Patrick Graham since then as well, adapting to the players you have on hand. With that being said, does this whole evaluation of getting ready for the draft and what you've scouted leading up to Mike McCarthy being hired change at all, because maybe he wants a little bit different personnel, or is it pretty much the same?
There's obviously going to be a little discrepancy to what it was in the past. There's some changes. We've been getting to know him, like I mentioned, and trying to understand maybe positionally certain players that he views differently than we do, and characteristics and traits that he wants. And we're learning his scheme. But for the most part, we're built for a 3-4. We're going to stay at 3-4. Offensively, there's some things he's going to do differently. He's an offensive coach, and we're going to adjust to some of that. But we have 12 picks. We're in good cap shape, so we're in a position where if there's opportunities, we'll be able to take advantage of them.
Is it safe to say we'll probably see more wide receivers on the field and fewer tight ends, though? I mean, that seems like one scheme change. It seems pretty clear.
It's early in that process. Yeah. Ask me that question once we get into training.
One of the things that I think that you and your staff have talked about is that offensive line and defensive line play travels, right? It plays in any conditions. It plays in Miami in September. It plays in Pittsburgh in January. So that having been said, is that something that's going to continue to be an emphasis for you guys, is making sure those trenches, which you've already done a phenomenal job of improving, continues to be that, and is that in lockstep with Mike's vision for the team as well?
Absolutely. I mean, that's not going to end, and it's always going to be a priority. And the reality is, we play in the AFC North, and it's a different type of football, and you got to be big in the trenches, and you got to be good. You got to be good in the trenches, and that we're never going to stop. We're never going to stop trying to improve those areas.
So our audience knows that there were big changes with the coaching staff, but from what I understand, there's very little changes with the scouting department or the grading system or any of those things. That's all going to stay pretty much intact.
That's going to stay. We like the system that we have. I have some awesome people that I work with in that area. Obviously Andy Weidel. We had Dan Colbert, Mark Sadowski, added Tim Gribble this year, Sheldon White. Like we got a good nucleus of people. We like the system that we run, and frankly, it's worked. And I know Coach T liked it, and Mike's really liked it so far. So I don't foresee many changes there.
When I look at your roster, I see fewer and fewer holes every year, which is a testament to you and your staff and the team you've put together. What you do as far as re-signing some of your own players or how you evaluate free agency, is that affect at all about the draft? Because the draft comes last, right? Even though it's this is the first thing that's got everybody's attention, it's the last thing as far as the roster building. Will you maybe shy away from a player thinking, well, we might be able to get a guy like this is a deep draft in at such and such a position, so maybe we don't need to pursue that in free agency? Or is that just a really small part of what you're doing as you evaluate?
Yeah, certainly we all say that, and it all sounds good, but the reality is we're all just trying to make educated guesses, and we're still going to be there whenever we pick. But the thing is the spring is so important in this process because right now I'm sitting here and I'm like, man, there's some good receivers, some good quarterbacks, some good running backs, some good linebackers. Like, we feel good, and then as you get through the spring, things kind of shake loose. You might have some medical stuff come up. You might have some off-the-field stuff. Just things sort of sort itself out. But it's at the end, so you have to approach it. And if there's opportunities in free agency or in the trade market to fill a position of need, it's something we have to do.
So speaking of medical, I mean, really the reason this combine was created was for medical reasons way back when, first and foremost. Does it break your heart every year that 2 or 3 times you get a medical red flag that you didn't expect on a I bet.
Absolutely. This goes way, way back. Yeah, it's just
it's bound to happen, right?
It happens, and sometimes you find yourself trying to talk yourself into it, and getting mad at your own doctors for not agreeing with you. But
they went to med school and you didn't. Yeah,
exactly. Right. That's just part of the process. But yeah, it happens.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that a lot of work is done. It's not like you just show up at the combine and you're like, okay, let's who do we got here this year in the draft, right? Yeah. Obviously, so much work has been done leading up to this. Do you have a sense yet, and will that sense in your history of doing this, will that sense change throughout this evaluation process this week in particular, but moving forward as well? Do you have a sense of the strengths and weaknesses of this year's draft? Are there certain areas you're like, okay, we're good here, and maybe we're weaker in this draft pool in general?
Yeah, so I got asked that question a couple times today in different settings, and I feel like I'm giving you guys the same answer every year, and I sort of am. It's good at really everywhere. There's players that can help us everywhere, and I go back to the answer I gave about the spring. That's so important. I wish, you should ask me that question in March when I see it at the league meetings. I'm sure it'll be different. I'll feel a lot differently than I do now. But, as we sit here today, it's a good draft. I mean, there's some good players. And, I hope everybody makes it through the medical. It gives us more options. But, yeah.
I mean, without revealing too much, I'm sure they're like every team, you guys have free agents to be, that are set to hit the open market. Do you generally have conversations with some of their agents at this point, or do most of them want to test the market and see what the offers come in?
We've already been in contact with some of our free agents and players that we want to retain. I'd like to tell you that it gets done sooner or later, but history has told me that those things usually happen close to the free agent date.
That's what I figured,
right before, right after. And I go into it like everybody else, saying, why is this so hard? We want you back, and, why can't we just get it done? And
you like us and we like you. And
let's get it done. And these things don't usually go that way.
When you look at this roster, we've talked about this. I was mystified, but I don't know how much attention you pay to prognosticators and what the Steelers are going to be able to do. And I was mystified that people didn't think the Steelers were going to be that good this year. And obviously you won the AFC North. You look at this team, you've positioned it so you've got a lot of cap space. You've positioned it so that you have 12 draft picks coming up. You've got a lot of your own players that you can re-sign. Do you feel good about the positioning of where this team is right now?
You know, I like the nucleus of some of the young talent that we have. We have guys getting ready to go into the second contracts, guys that are going to be Steelers for a long time. But, you know, Rob, the reality is we didn't win a playoff game last year. We got to be better. So, you know, like we do every year, we're evaluating everything in the organization and doing whatever we have to do to get better, because ultimately our goal is to win a Super Bowl, and we're not there yet.
So we hear this a lot, but it looks like the 2027 quarterback group could be really, really deep. Is that something you have to keep aware of in your thoughts even this year?
Yeah, we're always forecasting it at every position. But there's some good players. There's some good quarterbacks in this draft, you know, and there's going to be some good it looks like there's going to be some good quarterbacks in next year's draft. But, yeah, I mean, we're always forecasting and trying to get an idea, but you never know.
Omar, I know your schedule is unbelievably packed, so we thank you for taking
so
some time with us.
Love hanging out with you guys.
Yep.
Appreciate
it.
Yeah, thanks, Omar.